Hey, welcome back to yet another sports podcast. It is your bearded brothers here, and we are back again with yet another sports podcast. Hey! You know what? I feel like Chris today, so you can be Matt.
You don't want to be Chris today.
I don't want to be Chris today?
Chris hurts today. You don't want to be Chris today.
Chris hurts today?
Chris hurts today.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm not Chris today.
Chris is gonna be a little squinty-eyed today.
That bad, huh?
Enough. I don't think it's gonna affect me too badly.
Well, there you go.
Just slight squinting for a little bit.
Slight. All right. Let's start with a little bit of news, because today's podcast, we're definitely going to be doing our mock draft. I don't know that Chris and I are going to agree at all.
We probably won't. In fact, we already know we disagree at the very beginning. So
we already know that.
Interesting.
It's not that we entirely disagree. It's just a matter of perspective, because we both agree on a lot of parts of it. It's just we're both. I tipped one way and he tipped the other.
Disagree.
Yeah, the result. We agree on all the stuff leading up to the result, and then I tipped one way on it and he tipped the other, and both of us, we can understand each other's point of view on it. We already had a yell about it.
Yeah.
Which was fun.
It was not done in anger taste.
No, it was frustration and, like, incredulousness.
Yeah.
All right, so, Peters. Corey Peters, I believe his name was. Defensive tackle, played a long time in Arizona. I believe he played at Tennessee. He has officially retired. Facts in his paperwork, he has said, I am done.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Fair enough, dude.
All right. Been around a long time. I mean, yeah. Did what he did what he wanted, says he's done. All right.
Yep. He was 34 years old and played 12 seasons.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, never had the big impact that I think people thought he was going to have. But if you play 12 seasons, bully on you, dude.
To stay around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you were good enough to stick around that long.
You obviously weren't a shit player, otherwise you wouldn't have stuck around that long.
I also think the other interesting, there's two pieces of other interesting football news. The first one, police have resubmitted charges against Joe Mixon for menacing.
Yeah, apparently they might have found new evidence, it sounds like. That's the only reason that they could have possibly resubmitted.
That's what it sounds like, is that they have enough evidence or have come into possession of new evidence. Now, I will say that I looked up menacing, and that typically not always, a year in jail.
Yeah.
Which would severely impact Mixon. Yep. My guess is he doesn't get a year in jail. They'll reach some sort of plea bargain out of court about it. It'll involve community service and all kinds of crap. But my guess is he doesn't go to jail for it. Typically, it involves a year in jail, and one would wonder if the Bengals, Cincinnati, might be reaching the end of their rope with Mixon and his issues.
Possible.
And they could very well be, but they might keep him around. I don't know. They could be looking to trade for a running back, and there's a couple that are available. Dalvin Cook is probably available. Austin Eckler, we know, is available. I don't see them being high enough up to be able to draft one. Not one that I would consider a first rounder.
No, but I was going to say there's a couple that have actually moved up the board to be considered high seconds, where they might...
The only one that I really had coming up that high, I do have going in the first. And we'll talk about that when we get there.
So you see what I'm saying, though? I could see where they could attempt if they want to, but I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either.
I think they'll either stick with Mixon for another year, or they'll try to find somebody in the free agency.
Then interesting news out of Miami. Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, has said that at the end of this current contract, in 2025, he'll be 31, and he is going to be done with the NFL.
Which, interesting choice, I guess.
I mean, from what I heard from the podcast he said it on, he actually has other things he wants to do. He wants to get into business. He has a bunch of other things on his plate that he really wants to try to do and get into, and it sounds like he's really excited about doing. So, you know what? If you've got all of that on your plate, more power to you, dude. I absolutely, if that's what you want to do and that's your passion, do it.
And if he used the NFL to gather the money to be able to go after that, then fair enough.
Fair enough, exactly.
He got the last big contract from Miami. Maybe that was enough to finally be like, okay, this is my last contract. That's all the money I need.
This is all the money I need, and I'm going to get out while I'm still healthy and can walk.
Yeah,
and that might be that might be a new trend. Which, you know what? I would not be angry about that. I am totally okay with it.
On top of that, I think from his perspective too, if you think about it, technically, he's at the point where it's like, okay, and he's going to be in his 30s. He's not going to get probably better. He's probably going to start falling off, right? He's not going to be as fast. And while his route running is good, it's not as good as having that plus his speed. So he knows he's going to eventually start falling off, so why continue? Why not just go out on top while you're known as one of the best versus falling down and being known as the guy that used to be really good? You know?
Exactly.
So I get where he's coming from. He's got other passions. He doesn't want to get hurt, and why not go out while you're still considered one of the best?
Exactly.
Hey, more power to you.
More power to you if that's what your thing is. The last NFL news is the Titans and defensive lineman Simmons, that would be Jeffrey Simmons, have agreed in principle to a 4-year extension worth $94 million, 66 in guarantees and 24 in a signing bonus.
Nice.
He had 7.5 sacks last season, despite playing the last 8 games with an injured ankle. He is 25. So that'll take him up to about 31. That's pretty good.
Yep.
That's good for both sides, I think.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I have some pieces of hockey news. So, last night, Connor McDavid became the first player in 27 years to score 150 points. He currently sits at 151. There are still 2 games left, so he's going to continue. That puts him at 16th overall for single-season points. He is 1 ahead of Bernie Nichols and 1 behind Phil Esposito. Honestly, I looked at it. It's stupid. He has failed to score 100 points only twice in his career. The first was his rookie year, where he broke his collarbone, and he still had 48 points in 45 games. And the 2019-2020 season, due to COVID, he only had 97 points in 64 games.
Nah.
That's just dumb. Every other season he's had 100 or more points. And that's just stupid. The level he's playing at hasn't been seen in decades, and he's proving it. I think that's amazing. Oh, did you make sure somebody didn't come home?
Yeah, I thought I heard somebody for a second.
Okay. That's just dumb. It's just stupid. It's ridiculousness, if you ask me. Then we're going to talk Minnesota Wild real quick. This came through. They have signed the captain of the Minnesota Golden Gophers team now that the Frozen Four is done and the Gophers lost in the finals to Quinnipiac in overtime. They have signed Brock Faber, defenseman, and he will travel with the team now to their next game. That's not a horrible idea. I know he's a guy that they had on their list of people that they wanted to look at, and I absolutely think in terms of defense he's going to be great. They've also got Carson Lambos that's going to come up eventually. They have a dearth of defensemen at this point, and I think it's great. Um, and then we have to talk. We got to talk Boston because they have tied the single season record for wins in a season at 62, and they still have games to play. Just another record they're going to set. I think they're purposely being this good despite my brother this year. Do you want me to do a hockey corner before we do the draft?
I have nothing to say on that.
Do you want me to do the hockey corner and the NHL power rankings before we do the draft this time?
Do you want to?
I mean, do you think it would make more sense?
I mean, I guess technically if you want to sign off with the draft, then yeah.
Because, yeah, then we could do the whole draft, and we can get into that, and that way we can sign off with it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If
All
that's
right.
how you want to sign off, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna put the hockey corner. We're gonna put the draft first, and we'll do or not the draft. We're gonna put the power rankings first, and we'll do the draft after the power rankings. So let me quickly go through. Again, these are Friday to Friday. Then let me go through where we're at currently. So let's get into it. Number 10, having dropped precipitously, the Minnesota Wild, who in their last 10 are 5-3-2 with 98 points. Now, the good news is they did win last night. That does not reflect in these, but they finally broke a 3-game skid, and they won last night. So, bully. The Toronto Maple Leafs are at number 9. Their last 10, they are 5-3-2 over that time period with 103 points. They did lose to Boston very recently, but they came out and hit ball. It was like a 2-1 in overtime that they lost. They played really hard. They put a beating on the best team in hockey, one of the best teams in hockey right now. They played them hard. They've gotten back. O'Reilly is back in the lineup now. Achari's down on a lower line. They've got they've got some really good lines now. That I think they're going to be a real problem for people. I think if Toronto's going to make some noise, this is going to be the year they're going to do it, I think. At number 8, the Seattle Kraken, with their first appearance on my list.
Nice.
And their last 10, they are 6-3-1 and have 96 points, and they are going to make the playoffs.
Nice.
Their second year in existence, and they're making the playoffs. I think they're doing pretty good.
Well done.
Well done.
Dope-ass name. Well done.
Number 7, the New Jersey Devils, who in their last 10 are 6-3-1, and they have 108 points. They're finally, they're starting to put it back together again. Like, they had that skid, and now they're rounded into playoff form. So I think they're going to be okay.
Okay.
At number 6, the Dallas Stars. Last 10, 6-3-1. 100 points. Look, I'm going to be real with you. If we don't take the number 1 overall spot, I definitely don't want Dallas to have it, because I would rather play Dallas than Colorado.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm not going to say Dallas is the weaker opponent, but Dallas is the weaker opponent.
No.
They're still a really good team, though, and Jason Richardson is a beast, and he's going to be a great scorer on that team for years to come. I'm not happy about that.
Right.
Number 5, the New York Rangers, who in their last 10 are 6-2-2. They have 104 points. Shesterkin is being Shesterkin and standing on his head. The Rangers are putting the puck in the net. They're going to be dangerous. They're going to be a hard out. They're going to be a hard out, man. Number 4, the Vegas Golden Knights, who in their last 10 are 7-1-2 with 106 points. Man, the second player drafted in the McDavid draft, Jack Eichel, is looking like the second player drafted in that draft. He's playing really hard. Vegas overall is playing really well. They've gotten goaltending from nowhere. They've got good defense. They're playing really good, and they're going to be also a very difficult out. Number 3, the Colorado Avalanche. Last 10, 8-2-0, 100 points. They were injured for most of the year, and they were down several spots for a lot of this year. They were behind other teams that they have now jumped. They are the first place in the division. They are probably going to hold that. They are a wagon because everybody's coming back healthy. And it's not... if they could be said to have a weakness, it's in that. Georgiev is all right, but he is not fantastic. Francois is all right, but he is not fantastic. However, with the level of defense they play, it makes the goaltender's job easier. So,
Gotcha.
Number 2, the Boston Bruins, who in their last 10 are 9-1-0 with 127 points. What do you say that hasn't been said about Boston? Other than screw you. And number 1, the Edmonton Oilers, who have been absolutely torching people. In their last 10, they are 9-0-1. They have 103 points. Are they going to catch Vegas? I have no idea. Currently, as of this, they were 3 points behind. I think they are currently 2 points behind Vegas right now. I think Vegas still has 106. I think they have 104 or something.
It's possible.
Oh, it's possible, man. Or it's 108 and 106 or something like that.
Yeah.
They are both really, really close to each other. And in these last couple of games, Edmonton could catch and pass Vegas for the first overall for the spot there. And then they would be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And they would play... I don't even know who they'd play right now. Not Seattle, but the team beneath Seattle, which I believe currently is Winnipeg. But Winnipeg could get passed out by Nashville. They could also get passed out by Calgary. And I'll be honest, I would love to see a Battle of Alberta in the first round.
That'd be kind of funny.
Calgary and Edmonton.
That would be kind of funny.
We got it in the second round last year.
Yeah, fair. That's true.
So, but those are the power rankings right now. I gotta be honest, I think a Boston-Edmonton Cup final would be a lot of fun. And I would be rooting for Edmonton, obviously. But
yeah, of course.
But I think that would be... I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think we'd have fun with that. I think it'd be interesting.
I know who I would absolutely hate to see win, though, so...
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Draft time.
Oh, no, it's that time.
I'm not going to put in any draft noises.
Time.
I'm not going to put in any noises. I wish I could, like the little bleep they do when the pick is in. Blah-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm too lazy to even go...
Nah, but I'm not lazy enough that I might add some effects to the bottom and top of the screen for, like, when we pick.
Oh, yeah.
So that it's like, so that it slides in. There probably won't be a sound effect.
Pick
but
is in.
There'll probably be like a slide in or a wipe in or something where the pick comes in. I'll scroll it. I'll do something with it. I don't know what yet. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
But, so... Do you want to start or do you want me to start? I should also point out, we didn't do any trades.
No trades. No trades were allowed.
We will talk about places where we think there could be a trade, but we did not allow trades. And we didn't do it like we did our last mock draft thing where one of us took all the odds and one of us took all the evens. In this case, we each did a full 1-31. There are not 32 picks in the first round this year because Miami fucked up somehow and forfeited their first round pick.
Fuck you, Miami.
I still don't know what they did. I don't give a shit.
Wasn't it that tampering thing with Tom Brady or whatever?
I think so. That's probably what it was. Anyway,
I think
Miami, you done fucked yourself.
Miami likes to do that.
Yeah, Miami's silly like that. All right. So, do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
I don't know. Which one do you think's more entertaining? Your dumb or my almost not dumb?
probably my dumb. If you want to, if you are actually, do we want to start boring and then get exciting?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Do you want to start exciting?
Let's start
or do
boring.
you want
Let's start boring,
start
so
boring?
that you can pick
Okay.
Bryce Young first.
Okay, we'll start boring. The number 1 overall pick by the Carolina Panthers will be the QB out of Alabama, Bryce Young, for all of the obvious reasons. He's just, to be honest with you, people that like CJ Stroud over here, in my opinion, you could put either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young here. It does not matter. I think both are very close. They're different players. Don't get me wrong, but they're very close when it comes to overall potential. So I don't think it really matters which one you pick here. They're both safe picks. But they're just both very good QBs, and they're set up for success. And I think Carolina Panthers, whichever one they pick, I think their starters they're ready to go now, and they can make playoffs right now with. And I think for a year 1 starter, that's amazing to get. Now, if they want to sit him for a little bit, just in case, if they're worried, they could use Andy Dalton for that. Unless they want to use Andy Dalton as just a veteran backup presence, which is also very good, to be honest, just in case you have an injury with a young QB. So, overall, I think it's a good landing place for either one of them, and it just, for the Panthers, makes sense. The coaching staff will be safe that way. The GM will be safe. No, it's a safe pick. Let's just be honest. It's a safe pick either way you go. The odds of them failing outright is pretty small. It's a very safe pick.
So I went the opposite, and I went with the very unsafe pick. I went with the high gamble pick, and it has nothing to do with I think the player is better. I think he might have a bigger ceiling, but I think overall, I have a gut feeling that looking at all the intangibles and everything that he could be, it's going to be very hard for Carolina to pass on this player. And I think they could sell it to their fan base properly. I think they could also sell starting Andy Dalton for a year and not doing great for a season while we wait for this guy to be ready. So that we can get another high pick and maybe pick up another wide receiver or an offensive tackle or an edge rusher that could help us out in the long run next draft. And that would be, this time, the QB from Florida, Anthony Richardson. I love his ceiling. I love his athleticism. I love everything about him. He is not ready to start. 100% not ready to start. At least from what I've seen. We both could be very wrong, and he could, if he gets drafted number 1 and comes into camp, he could blow us all away with how ready he actually is. Maybe he works with an accuracy coach and a coach all off season and figures out all of the mechanical issues that he's had and his accuracy issues, and he comes in and just sets everything on fire. That could happen. I don't think that is what will happen. I think that if you draft him, you have to start Andy Dalton for a year, but I don't know. I think the intangibles are there. I think it's a gamble. And Chris and I discussed, it is a ginormous gamble because it could blow up in your face and set you back several years easily.
Yep. And
but,
very likely could end up with, coaches and GMs getting fired.
It could. But if it pays off, you get a lot of goodwill out of that, and you get a guy who's a potential Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
That's true.
His ceiling projects out to be at least that level, in my opinion. And you probably have a dude who leads you to multiple Super Bowls, which in the end, your goal isn't to win one next season. Your goal is to eventually win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years. So I think Richardson gives you a better chance to do that than the other two do. I'm not saying that they don't have a chance to do that. I just like Richardson a little better. And that's just me personally.
I don't necessarily agree with you, which is obviously why I picked differently, and that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay.
All righty. Number 2.
Right, moving on to number 2, which belongs to the Texans, which is also another very easy pick for everybody here. If Panthers picking Bryce Young, the Texans are going to pick the QB out of Ohio State, C.J. Stroud. It just makes sense. If the Panthers end up picking C.J. Stroud, then the Texans will pick Bryce Young. It's interchangeable here. I think, again, it's all for the exact same reasons that I already explained for the number 1 pick. They're both very good. They're both very safe picks. They're both going to lead you probably to playoffs, and they're both likely to, at this point in time, in my mind, their ceiling is potentially winning Super Bowls. Just makes sense.
I'm not going to say that you are incorrect. So at number 2, the Houston Texans will select the QB from Alabama, Bryce Young. If the Panthers do what I do, if they go ahead and draft Richardson first, Texans are definitely taking Bryce Young second. There's no, like, between him and Stroud, I still think Young is the better, more ready quarterback. I think he's...
Yeah.
Do I think he has an attitude problem? Yes. Do I think that could be mitigated and can turn into chip on my shoulder, Joe Burrow cocky attitude? Absolutely. With the right people around him, I think that totally is what happens. Also, everybody making fun of him about his height. I think he plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think he comes in and tries to ball out and show you that my height doesn't matter, F off.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, people comparing him to Tua. I don't think he wants that comparison. I think he wants to prove that he's way better. So, do I think he's got a lot of potential? Absolutely. I think he's going to ball out. I think he's going to play hard. And I think that the league is in trouble.
I agree for all those reasons. Now, we're coming to number 3, which belongs to the Cardinals. And I think this is the first pick where I will personally mention, and I'm pretty sure Matt will agree with me, this is very likely a spot where the Cardinals will end up trading down. They very likely will not keep this pick because they have so many needs, and frankly, at this spot, they can get a lot more capital to get a lot more picks to fill those needs at later portions down the draft. They do not need to pick here. However, because we aren't allowing trades, I picked a player that I thought made sense for the Cardinals. It's very possible that my brother will disagree with me, which is absolutely okay. But I just thought it made sense for so many different reasons. So the Cardinals will select the edge out of Alabama, Will Anderson Jr. He is one of the best edge slash linebackers, which is it fills both needs. That they have needs at both those spots, so he can play an edge and part of a linebacker, which fills both roles for the Cardinals. And based upon what they have already lost, based off of retirements and other issues, I mean, it just fits. It makes sense. I don't think too many people will disagree with me here.
No, at number 3, the Arizona Cardinals select the edge from Alabama, Will Anderson Jr.
God damn it.
Well, and I literally have on my sheet here, it says the Cardinals need so many things. They absolutely, I think they trade.
Yeah.
They could easily take a wide receiver here, especially if they move DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
But they still have Hollywood Brown on the roster, even if you trade that out. Even if you trade him away, there's still going to be some receivers that are going to be high in the second round that'll be just as good. Anderson Jr. is an absolute beast of a player. He's a can't-miss defensive edge prospect that changes the complexion of your defense entirely.
Right.
He's J.J. Watt as J.J. Watt was back in Texas,
exactly.
Or better. And I honestly, if you keep that spot, he's got to be your guy.
He's got to be the guy. Yeah. It just makes sense.
Alrighty.
Moving on to the 4th spot, which belongs to the Indianapolis Colts. And with the 4th spot, the Indianapolis Colts will pick the QB out of Florida, Anthony Richardson. I hate to put Anthony Richardson here because I, along with my brother, do not believe he's ready to start. However, Jim Irsay being Jim Irsay will absolutely select Anthony Richardson at this spot if he's here.
And then ruin him.
Frankly, just due to the fact that he does have that potential. And I bet you he thinks he's ready to start. And he's going to throw him in. And he's going to trial him by fire. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe he's ready to start like you said. And he's just going to blow everything up. And he's going to be Andrew Luck 2.0 or even better.
Cam Newton but better.
Cam Newton 2.0 or whatever you want to call it, right? Andrew Luck fused with Cam Newton and whatever, Oof. Right? It's one of those things where it could happen. I think that this is the wrong spot to pick Anthony Richardson in. I don't like putting him here. I just know that Jim Irsay won't pass him if he's here, which is why I have him being selected at the Colts spot, and I feel disgusted doing it. And I just want everyone to know that I hate it.
Well, at number 4, the Indianapolis Colts select the quarterback out of Ohio State, C.J. Stroud. Remember, he's still on my board. And honestly, I think he fits better here than Richardson.
He does.
This is a much, much better spot for Stroud. I think he is ready to start day one. I think the Colts will... I still think the Colts will ruin him because the Colts are the Colts. But they could get a lot of mileage out of him if they do the right things. And let's hope that they do.
Yeah, I mean, I actually totally agree with that. This is... Even though I disagree with the first pick being Richardson on yours, I do agree that this makes more sense for the Colts. And I do agree that this also makes sense for the players involved as well, to be honest. I just don't think that's the way it'll end up being played out. But I do end up agreeing with how your board did actually end up turning out there. All right, moving on. We move on to the number 5 pick, which belongs to the Seattle Seahawks. And
thank you, Denver.
Yeah, thank you, Denver. Right now, this is a spot Seattle could move down if they wanted to, and I did put that down as a possibility that this is a spot they could trade out of if they wanted to. I don't know if you agree with me on that or not, but it is possible. I don't think they will. I don't know. I keep going back and forth on if they will or won't. It's a tough one because they could easily trade out, but they have another first round pick further down.
I think that's the one they're going to trade.
So, yeah. So it's hard to say. Yeah, they'll probably trade one of them. Now, I think here they'll select probably a. There's a lot of options here. I'm not going to lie. I had a lot of options here because Seattle has plenty that they could pick up on. But I figured maybe showing up their defense is probably the way to start here. So I ended up choosing the safety out of Alabama, Brian Branch. And I decided to stick him here in Seattle. And I know it seems like a weird option, but I think Seattle does need to shore up their safety a little bit more. I'm pretty sure, did they pick one up in the offseason? I don't remember if they ended up...
I don't think they needed to. I think they have 2 starting safeties that are fantastic.
I disagree. I don't think they do. I think that they can get a better safety here with Brian Branch than what they have, and that gives them option to move one of their other safeties, and then that gives them more capital. I think Brian Branch is a pretty good player for this spot, and I don't know. I think the Seahawks, it makes sense for me. There are other options I could have went with, but that's fine. You disagree, and that's okay.
I'm just looking. I want to see who the starting safeties that they have are.
Well, I believe, if I can pull one up here.
Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams.
Yeah. So?
Jamal Adams is amazing.
Jamal Adams has not been as good as what he's getting paid for.
No, I'm not going to say that his contract is correct.
Since he's gone to Seattle, he hasn't been worth what he's getting paid.
I'm not going to say that he's worth his contract, but that doesn't mean that Brian Branch is going to be better.
I think you can replace either one of them, drop some salary cap, and place Branch in here and still be just as good.
Maybe, but I don't like that.
Hey, that's fine.
And that's fine.
That's fine.
So, number 5, the Seattle Seahawks go ahead and they're going to shore up their defensive line, which was fucking abysmal last year. They couldn't generate any kind of a pass rush. They couldn't stop the run to save their own ass. Now, they got back Bobby Wagner. They also got another defensive end, so they're obviously going to get better. But they're going to take the defensive tackle out of Georgia, Jalen Carter. You need somebody to stop the run? Jalen Carter's going to stop the run. You need somebody to push the pile to get into the backfield? Jalen Carter's going to demand double teams. Look,
that's true.
I know he's got some potential upcoming legal drama, but I think that all blows over. I don't think that there's anything there. I think it's all smoke and no fire.
Right.
I think he's going to go right here, and I think he'll be just fine in Pete Carroll's system up in Seattle. I think this is the great pile pusher. I think this really helps Seattle. And then you don't have to expose the safeties as much. Rather than trying to shore up that thing, because you've got a good secondary overall, but if you can generate more pass rush, you don't have to hang them out to dry quite as often. So we're both kind of doing the same thing, just different angles.
In a different way.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the 6th overall pick, which belongs to the Detroit Lions.
Thank you, Los Angeles.
I put a player here that I thought the Lions could absolutely use as well. I think that will just make the Lions a little bit more fun. Um, and I'm actually picking the defensive lineman out of Georgia, Jalen Carter, for the Lions here. I figured if he's not going to the Seahawks, he's going to the Lions. And you want to talk about a defense that's already scary? Oh, you put Jalen Carter here. That's absolutely
I 100%
disgusting.
agree with you. At one point in my draft, I had the Cardinals taking a wide receiver. I had the Seahawks grabbing Anderson, and then I had Carter going to the Lions. 100%.
Yeah.
When I went back to what I'm doing here, they're going to take someone else. But no, I agree with you. That's scary. Putting him on the same line as Hutchinson is just fucking wrong.
It's disgusting. It would be so gross if that happens. It's gonna be so gross.
It is.
And for the Lions, like, they don't need to trade. They have 2 picks here. There's no reason for them to trade out if Carter is here.
Yeah,
you take it. Like,
absolutely. Even if
like
he's
if
not.
Carter's not here, and you have an option at like someone like maybe Brian Branch. I think Brian Branch here might not be a bad option even for him.
You could totally go that route. You could even go Devin Witherspoon from Illinois.
Oh yeah, you could do Devin Witherspoon would be great here too.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
not hate that either.
But what I did here, the Lions at number 6 will take the edge from Clemson, Miles Murphy.
Put Miles Murphy here. Okay.
I put Miles Murphy here because Murphy and Hutchinson coming off of either side is just nasty. That's wrong. That's just wrong. They're going to just terrorize teams in the North for years.
It's funny. I actually thought about it for a second. I thought about it. Didn't say it, but I thought about it the minute after you said that you didn't have Carter. I was just like, I bet you he put Miles Murphy here.
I absolutely did. I know he's dropped down a lot of draft boards. I know he didn't turn in a great pro day workout. I know he didn't turn in a great combine. But if you look at his game tape, I don't think any of that matters. His game tape tells the whole tale of everything I need to see. And that's he's got a motor that doesn't quit, and he's going for it. He's going to absolutely go for it. And you put him in Detroit next to Hutchinson, or on the same line as Hutchinson on either end, oh, man, I feel bad for people at that point. Or if you move him to, say you move him to like a linebacker position and you have him come off the same side as Hutchinson. Who do you block?
Hopefully one.
Hopefully both, but there's no way that's going to happen.
No, yeah, I think you're lucky if you get one of them.
I think you're lucky if you get one. Yeah, no, that's just, it's nasty, it's disgusting, and it's just, I don't even want to contemplate that in my division.
Yeah,
but there it is.
I don't disagree. That's a good pick. I definitely don't disagree with that. So far we have a lot of players going in similar areas, which is kind of what I expected. I'm curious to see if this is going to continue because I think further down the board things might go pretty erratic.
I think you're right.
I figured early on it would stay pretty close, but I think we're getting towards the part where I think maybe it's not going to go erratic yet, but I don't think we're too far off from where it's going to start going a little haywire.
I don't think so either. We'll see.
So the Raiders have the pick at the 7th overall, and the Raiders did just end up moving on from Derek Carr. They ended up picking up Jimmy G, who has a history of not taking hits well. And you already have an offensive line that maybe isn't as good as you'd like. So maybe you decide that picking the offensive tackle out of Northwestern, Peter Skorinski, is going to be your pick. I think the Raiders will pick Peter Skorinski here. I think that they really need to shore up that offensive line. Even if, say, they don't stay with Jimmy G long term, I still think you want to shore up that offensive line for any rookie QB that you pick up or any other veteran QB you pick up in the future. I think it just makes sense. He's easily one of the best offensive linemen in this draft, in my opinion. Definitely one of the best offensive tackles. It just makes sense.
I'm not going to disagree. I, however, don't have them needing an outside offensive lineman.
Okay.
I have them needing the interior offensive lineman, guards and centers. And I think they're going to look at that in the second round because there's going to be several of those that drop into the second round that I think are going to be completely worth it, including the center from Minnesota, whom I think is probably the best center in the draft. And I think they could probably get him about this spot in the second round. They need some help defensively. They need some
I don't disagree.
secondary help. They need cornerback help. So at this point in time, at the 7th pick, the Raiders are going to select the cornerback from Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. Look, if you're going to go with needing secondary help, grab the best one available, and Witherspoon is a monster in the secondary.
I don't disagree with you at all. It definitely makes sense. The only reason I didn't go that way is only because I believe that there are other cornerbacks that the Raiders could pick up in the second that I think that are still plenty good.
They could, and you and I, again, we flipped it.
We just kind of flipped it a little bit.
I said they're going to do the interior offensive line in the second, and you said they're going to do secondary in the second. Either way, neither of those picks is wrong.
No, they're both good picks. With that said, we're moving on to the 8th overall pick, which belongs to the Falcons. And the Falcons, with the 8th overall pick here, man, they have a lot of options that they could pick from. It's funny. I saw a lot of people saying that they should pick a QB here, which I thought was the most ridiculous thing ever. You already got a QB. He played pretty well at the end of the season. Let him continue trying. Like, what? You don't know what you have yet. What the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I think instead what you do here is you shore up that defense, and you pick the best secondary back that you can at this spot, which is the guy out of Illinois, Devin Witherspoon. You had him going one pick above, but it makes sense for the Falcons here. They really need some corners. They need to really work on that defense big time, and Devin Witherspoon's an easy pick.
So I don't disagree with your pick, but what I did here for the 8th overall pick, I say the Falcons shore up the offensive line and give Ritter the best possible chance that you have to throw the ball and see what you get out of him. So, and because I like him a little better, they're going to take the offensive tackle from Ohio State, Paris Johnson Jr.
That's fair.
In reality, they could take Skorinsky here as well. Those two are
still think it's
so
funny how
good.
He practically swapped those.
Yeah, no, I think they're both so good they're interchangeable. Either one of them is going to be a franchise cornerstone on the offensive line for years to come. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely beast.
Yeah.
So, but I like the idea of giving him a cleaner pocket and seeing what you get out of him.
I also love how we swapped picks. Also, like with the Raiders, I had going with an offensive lineman. You had a corner that we swapped, where I had the corner here, and then
you could totally go with a corner here if the offensive linemen are off the board, and you could absolutely pick up an offensive lineman in the second round. I'm not going to say that that's not an option.
I just think it's absolutely hilarious. Now, I think this is where things you will. I have a feeling that either you're gonna love what I'm gonna do here, or you're gonna absolutely hate what I do here. So the 9th overall pick belongs to the Chicago Bears, and I thought long and hard about who should I have the Bears pick here, because I feel like there's a pretty good chance that the Bears could move out of this spot. There is a reasonable suspicion where they could. Because a lot of their needs they could easily get later in the first round and easily into the second round. But what I did instead was I pulled the trigger on something that I thought would be hilarious, because if the Bears know that the Eagles are following them, they might decide to do something crazy. And the Bears are going to do something crazy and pick a wide receiver coming out of TCU, Quentin Johnston. And I know that you hate it. I knew you were going to hate it, but I love the idea of pairing Quentin Johnston, a young receiver who has some remarkable talent, some high talent, and you pair him with a young quarterback in Justin Fields, and it just makes sense. I mean, you look at the wide receiver room already for the Bears, they have some good pieces. But you get another really good piece there. They have 2 right now. I looked it up. They have only 2 that I think are actually good. Name the 3 that you think are good right now.
Moore.
Yeah.
Claypool.
Yeah.
Mooney.
Mooney is okay. I do not.
I think Mooney is a good slot.
I think Mooney's okay. I think Quentin Johnson though you put here, and you easily have the best wide receiver room almost. You have one of the best wide receiver moves.
In my opinion,
I disagree. And I think you put Quentin Johnson here, you move either one of the other guys easily if you want to then. And you have other picks.
I mean, maybe. I'm not going to say that. I think there's better things to do here.
Maybe there is, but I just kind of like the idea.
Because
of
I also don't
young...
think the Eagles are going to take a wide receiver.
I could see them doing it, but I don't think they will either. I'm just saying that I could see them doing it. If Quentin Johnston is there, I could absolutely see them picking up the wide receiver, picking up there. But
so what I did instead at 9th, the Bears are going to they're going to look at they're going to look at their roster and they're going to do kind of the same assessment that the Falcons did. We have a young quarterback, we have a crappy offensive line, we need an offensive lineman to help anchor down the pocket and see what we can get out of Fields. So, they're going to take, out of Northwestern, the offensive tackle, Peter Skorinski. Let's give Fields as much time as he needs to throw. Let's see what we can do. We've got one really good receiver, and 2 that could be really good. Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney. I think that both of them have potential. And then they've got a new running back in there and everything else. And Cole Kmet. Let's see what we've got in Justin Fields. Let's give him the cleanest pocket we can. And Skorinski makes absolute sense as a cornerstone on that line.
Honestly, maybe that's possible, but like I said, when I first picked this spot, I think they can get interior offensive linemen easily in the second round and be fine. I don't think they have to pick a big one here.
And that's possible. I'm not disagreeing with you, but
and that's the only reason I didn't do that. That was one of the options I had on my mind when I was picking this. But I decided to be a little contrarian and pick something that I thought would be more fun, which is pairing a young receiver with a young QB and just see what happens. I just thought that'd be fun.
There you go.
That's the only...
Alrighty.
Okay, moving on to the 10th overall pick, which belongs to the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is another spot where I actually had a tough time evaluating the Eagles, obviously. I had a tough time trying to figure out where their weaknesses are. I thought maybe shoring up their defense maybe was a good option. They have options still on offense. And I did something that, again, is very questionable, and I know I didn't like putting this pick in. But at the same time, I could see the Eagles and thinking about the Eagles making this pick, which is why I did it. It's only surely on a gut feeling on if this player is available, would the Eagles pick him? It's possible. And I'm not joking. I almost, before we started recording, removed him and moved him with a different player. I still don't like this pick. But they will select still on my board the running back out of Texas by Jared Robinson. I just think that even though they have some decent running back space still, because they picked up Penny and they lost Sanders, but they got Penny, right? They don't necessarily need another running back, but at the same time, Robinson is so good that would they pass him up if he's there? I just don't know if they would, and that's why I put him here. And I don't know what else is better that they could pick. There's maybe some options, like I said, on defense, but I didn't decide to go that way.
All right. Well, what I did here, I did shore up their one defensive hole. Because they have one. In the offseason, they lost one of their starting safeties.
Yeah.
So, because he's still on my board, at this spot, number 10, the Eagles select the safety out of Alabama, Brian Branch.
Yeah,
and
honestly, if he would have been available, I probably would have done that.
Yeah, and he absolutely shores up my secondary, the Eagles secondary here. I think it's a fantastic pick for the Eagles. I think this makes the most sense landing spot-wise for him, too. He'll start right away, and he'll make a big impact on a team that's probably going back to the Super Bowl.
Very possible, yeah.
Yeah.
Very possible. Okay. Well, moving on to the 10th overall pick, which belongs to the Tennessee Titans. Yeah. 11th pick, sorry, I can't read. 11th overall pick, Tennessee Titans. I said the right team, wrong number.
You did say the right team.
The Tennessee Titans. And I thought about it for a while, and they actually have a lot of holes, actually, in a lot of different ways. But one problem that they have had, and they continue to have, and I don't know why they continue to have this problem, but it just makes sense that they would end up going this way, which is they're going to pick up a wide receiver out of Ohio State, which is Jackson Smith Njigba. I just think he's the best option at this point because of the fact that their number one wide receiver is already gone, that Johnston's already gone. If Johnston was here, they'd probably pick him, actually. But they need wide receiver help. They don't have a lot of wide receiver help. And frankly, if they don't end up going with a QB here, they could. But if they don't, and they need wide receiver help so bad for any QB that they have, they just don't have any.
Which is why at number 11, the Tennessee Titans select the wide receiver out of Texas Christian University, Quentin Johnson. I literally wrote, they need a wide receiver, and they fall on their knees and thank a deity that the best one of the draft slipped to the 11th pick.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly.
They oh my god, that would be so good for them and absolutely amazingly fantastic.
Yeah, if he was here on my board, he'd definitely be going to the Titans. Yeah.
Gone.
No questions. No questions
100%
at all.
No question.
All right. Now moving on to the 12th overall pick, which belongs to the Texans. And this is one of the ones where they could end up deciding to trade out of this spot, because they do have a lot of other needs that they can get in the later rounds. So they don't necessarily need to pick here. I don't know if you agree with me or not on that, or
if I feel like they have a pretty big hole here that can get filled right here, and I think it's worth it. But they could probably still fill that hole later on in the draft, or later on in the first round, because there's a couple of other players that could fill it, and if you could get some extra capital out of it, you might want to do that. So
fair enough. Now, as far as holes go, it's possible we see two different holes, because honestly, like I said, the Texans do have a lot of holes technically.
They do.
Quite a bit on defense and offense, actually.
They do.
But I thought it would be fun that since they've already picked a QB, why not pair him with a young wide receiver? I thought it'd be fun, and so I ended up picking the wide receiver out of USC, Jordan Addison. I'm going to guess you did the same thing.
I absolutely did. I also have the wide receiver out of USC, Jordan Addison, going to the Texans. I have him rated out above Smith Njigba from Ohio State. And that's just me. You could interchange them, and it still works out. I just like Addison a little bit better, and it's just a personal feeling. But yeah, no, I had the same thought. If you draft a young QB, get him his running mate right away. Let's get him a wide receiver that he can grow up with. Let's do it. Exactly. Do it, Texas. It makes sense.
It'd be fun.
But again, this is why I said you could also trade him down lower and pick up a Zay Flowers or a whoever falls down out of the wide receiver group here, because there's not going to be another one picked for a little bit.
Downs or something like that.
Yeah, Downs, something. You could trade down and still get a good wide receiver.
Oh yeah.
But you've got a good one here. Let's pick it here. But if you could get some extra capital, I think they do it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. He's such a good overall wide receiver, right?
Yes.
It just makes sense.
He's a very solid guy, yeah.
I don't know what kind of wide receiver he's going to end up being, but I think out of all the options that are available that are left on the board, I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
It just makes sense. All right, so we're going on to the next pick, which is the 13th overall pick, which belongs to the New York Jets.
I did something stupid here.
I also did something stupid here. And I thought about, what do the Jets need? Well, I thought about this long and hard. Okay? And there were two people I was actually jumping between. And I chose one over the other for a very small detail that I will tell you after I say the name, because I imagine that when I say the name, you're going to think that I'm stupid. Or maybe you have the same player, and maybe you'll actually agree with me, but for very different reasons. I'm thinking that, okay, the Jets are likely getting Aaron Rodgers at some point. So what do they still need? Well, if you're bringing in a veteran QB, the last thing you want is him getting hit. So maybe you shore up your offensive line. So I thought, okay, who do you put in here to protect Aaron Rodgers the best? So I ended up choosing the offensive tackle out of Georgia, Broderick Jones. And I thought about it because it was between Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson Jr. And the only reason I went with Broderick Jones over Paris Johnson Jr. is simply due to the fact that when I was looking at their tape and I was reading their kind of what other people were saying about them, Broderick Jones just happens to be a little better at pass defending, pass rushes. He's not as good as on his rush defenses, but he's good at pass defending. Where Paris Johnson Jr. is the opposite. He's better at rush defending versus pass defending. So if you are going to rely on Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball more, which you probably are if you're the Jets, you want somebody who's going to be better in the pass. And that's the only reason I picked Broderick Jones over Paris Johnson Jr.
Okay. I did not go offensive line here, but I will note that one of the things I said was they could go offensive tackle here. Okay. That is something that I said, because there were a couple of holes that I also saw. But I looked at it, and they still have Noah Fant, and they still have Mekhi Becton. Now, I know Becton has kind of fallen out of favor, maybe, but he's young enough to be able to turn that around, in my opinion. He's, what's his third year, fourth year coming in? He's young enough to still be able to flip that. So we'll have to see how he does, if he can flip that and everything else. But they could absolutely go offensive line here. But I said, if you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers, let's be smart. You've got some good wide receivers. You've got a very good young running back. But there's one piece that you don't have. You don't have a tight end to throw to.
See, I thought about that too.
So from here, and then two names popped up. And it was, which one do I want? And you know what?
I'm curious to see which one you picked.
I'm going to go with the tight end from Notre Dame, Michael Mayer.
Michael Mayer, yep.
Yep. I think he's literally potentially going to be the next Gronk.
I could definitely see it. And here's the thing is, I feel disgusting saying this. I don't even have him going in my first round.
Ooh.
And it's only because I valued other positions more highly. And I feel bad saying that because this would be a good spot for him. But I still think that they wanted to shore up that offensive line more. And I just, as much as I like Miles Mayer, he easily could go in the first round. Don't get me wrong. He absolutely should. I just couldn't fit him in. I kept trying to find ways to fit him in that made sense over other players, and I just personally couldn't do it. But
you're going to hate me.
The spot to do it.
I don't have Broderick Jones in my first round.
And here's the thing. I could see that happening. I've seen him slipping, so it's very possible.
I have a couple of other offensive tackles in here, but not Jones.
I also do. It's happening.
So, yeah, we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. But I don't disagree. I think that's a very good pickup if you're gonna pick a tight end, especially one that's gonna catch the ball. That's the way to go. I don't disagree with that pick at all.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so going on to the 14th overall pick, which belongs to the Patriots. And this is another pick where I was trying to figure out what they do, and I ultimately landed on the same kind of feeling that I did with the Jets, which is I think that they need to shore up their offensive line some more. I think if they really want Mac Jones to have the best potential, give him some more offensive linemen because there's not enough there yet. And so I went with the next best option here, which was Paris Johnson Jr. So either way, these were going to end up pretty much flipped in my book. Either way.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
So that's ended up where I went. Yeah, no.
So I looked at this and I went, I don't know if they're going to try to shore up their offensive line here or if they're going to go deeper for that. But I tried to get into the head of the person that's actually drafting.
That's the hard part for me. I don't know what the hell Bill's going to do.
Bill is weird. You
Exactly.
never know what Bill is going to do. But
I know.
Bill is a defensive-minded coach.
He is. That's true.
And when you've got a guy sitting here who's been sitting here, who is as good and potentially people think could be better than Myles Murphy, you got to take him. And so here, the Patriots go with the edge rusher from Texas Tech, Tyree Wilson. Honestly, Bill likes his edge rushers like that. He likes them versatile. He likes to be able to play them in multiple schemes.
That's
And
true.
I could easily see Lucas Van Ness going here because he can play
That's true.
linebacker, defensive tackle, and defensive end, and Bill could move him all over the field into multiple packages and just see what
That's
you
true.
can get out of him. But I think the prospect of having Wilson here is just too enticing for somebody like Bill to pass up. He's possibly a generational edge rush talent as well, and I think he fits very well, especially when you've already got a linebacker who just retired and you've got all these
That's
other
true.
things. You could completely shore up your defense again with another great offensive pick or defensive pick, pardon, that is just going to be a nuisance for other teams,
Right.
which is a very Belichick thing to do.
Oh yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Not the way I went, but I could understand it. All right. So moving on to
The Packers.
15th overall pick. Yep. Which belongs to the Packers. So I thought about this for a while, and obviously, drafting for a team that you don't like is always difficult. You have to always try to be like, I'm just gonna give him the worst player possible. No, I thought about their team for a while and thought what are options that they could go with. They're obviously not gonna go with a QB because they really are in on Jordan Love. They could go wide receiver here. I could see it, but I think based upon what's on the board available here, I don't think they need to reach for one. Um, that might be argumentative. Some people might say they're not reaching for one at this part, depending on what's available. But I think that they can get good wide receivers still available in the second round. I don't think they need to grab anything here. They could. I just don't know if they will. So instead, I went with, okay, what's the next best thing that they need? They do need some work on defense, and I thought maybe picking an edge here might not be a bad option for them. So the Packers will pick the edge out of Clemson, Miles Murphy. Um, I think that they need a little bit more work as far as, rushing that passer. And, Miles Murphy plays a good defensive end, a good edge rusher. I think it makes sense. Yeah.
You and I drew the same conclusion. I also believe, looking at it, that defense is one of their problems, and they do need an edge rusher. They also could use a tight end. I'm not going to say that would be out of the realm of possibility, but when you have a guy that's sitting here, because remember Murphy's gone off of my board already. Murphy went really high. So to me, the Packers will take from Iowa Lucas Van Ness.
Okay.
He can play linebacker, he can play defensive end, he can play defensive tackle. He could basically fill whatever hole you want him to fill, and he's going to be good at it. He's going to be able to push the pile and rush the passer. He's going to be a good player. He can play a lot of different positions, and he can do them well. So that all being said, I think the Packers are going to grab him here. I think he's the best after Wilson. I think he's the third best pass rusher on the board. And I think that the Packers definitely need some help in that department. So I think he goes here, and I think he turns out to be a very good pick for them.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That's not a bad option. Obviously, we had the same kind of idea, so
Yep.
either way, I think are good picks. Okay, we're moving on to the 16th overall pick. And, man, yeah, this belongs to the Commanders. And when you look at what the Commanders need, it's a fucking lot. And I had a tough time really deciding what I wanted to pick here for the Commanders because there's just so many good picks here for them that it was hard to decide what was the right pick for them. I don't know if the pick that I chose is the right pick, and in fact, I imagine you're going to disagree with it. But I thought about their situation, and the very first thing I thought of is, what are they going to do at QB? They could continue using Sam Howell at their QB. They don't have Carson Wentz, I believe, anymore. I believe
they got rid of him.
They got rid of him, and I believe they also don't have Heineke anymore. I believe
they got rid of him.
Gone.
They got Brissett, though.
They had Jacoby Brissett, and they got Sam Howell.
Yep.
They could decide to start Sam Howell and decide what can this kid do. He did okay in the one game. Let's see what else he can do. Or they can go, okay, Jacoby Brissett's a pretty good veteran. He's a pretty decent guy. We could have him start. But I think instead that the Commanders will look at what's on the board and make an interesting decision. And will not pick the QB that you expect them to pick, but will pick a completely different QB coming out of Tennessee, Hendon Hooker.
Given the buzz, I could see it.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker is starting. He's actually moved up a lot of draft boards recently. He's looked good in his pro day. He's looked very, very good after. A lot of people were worried about his injury, but ever since then, he's looked good, really good after coming back from his injury even. And I could easily see Ron Rivera looking at this guy going, he's got Cam Newton-esque abilities, but plays smarter. And that might fit exactly what Ron Rivera wants. So,
I'm not going to say you're wrong.
I just think I could see Ron Rivera liking him over the other QB available, which would be Will Levis on my board.
Yes.
So that's why I ended up going that way. I think that they're going to pick a QB that they want for the future, and I think that would be Hendon Hooker.
Okay. Given what Ron Rivera is, though, and given what he favors, I took a different route entirely.
That's fair.
I looked at one of the other holes they have, which is they've got a very, very, very good defense with one gigantic glaring hole. Their secondary needs help.
Okay.
Their secondary needs a lot of help. And with this guy being on the board and Rivera being a defensive-minded coach, I went, let's pull the trigger. So, the Commanders at 16 will take the cornerback from Oregon, Christian Gonzalez.
Okay, yeah.
He's a very good cornerback. I think he definitely helps their secondary quite a bit. I think, having him back there with the rush that they have is going to allow him to play very, very hard and get a lot of stuff. Could even be a defensive rookie of the year candidate. I think it's going to be. I think that's a very, very good match. I could see them going quarterback, but it does sound, from everything that we're hearing out of the organization, it sounds like they are all in on Howell, at least until the team is sold. And because I think whoever would buy that team would want the ability to pick their coach and their quarterback over anything else. So the safer pick to me is Gonzalez.
I can see that. I don't disagree with that option.
There you go.
There we go. All right, moving on to the 17th overall pick, which belongs to the Steelers. And this is another pick where I thought about it. I feel like almost every pick's like this, where I had a tough time actually deciding which of the holes do I feel like I need to fill. And even if it's a hole in the first place, because sometimes what people say is a hole isn't really a hole. Maybe just need a change of player sometimes. And I ended up choosing... I chose to decide to shore up their defense. I think, personally, when I watched the Steelers, I didn't like their secondary very much. I think they could have worked a little bit on their secondary a little bit more. I know that that's probably contentious because I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with that. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with my pick, which is I'm going to pick the cornerback out of Oregon, which is Christian Gonzalez here. I mean, is their secondary bad? No. But can it be better with Christian Gonzalez? Absolutely. And that's ultimately why I went that route. I couldn't see too many other picks in my mind that made more sense. Maybe there are, but I liked Christian Gonzalez enough to have him be my pick here.
I 100% agree with you. I think their secondary can be better. I think they could fill it up. But since Gonzalez is gone, I went ahead and picked the cornerback out of Penn State University, Joey Porter Jr.
Joey Porter Jr. Okay.
And all I wrote down was like father, like son, because his dad played here as a Steeler. So I also like the symmetry of the family lineage here.
Oh, that's
there's something about that makes me chuckle.
That is kind of funny.
Joey Porter Jr. becoming a Steeler makes a lot of sense. A lot of ties there already. I think that helping them out makes a lot of sense. So I am certainly not going to say that you did wrong by picking a cornerback, because I did the same thing. Just a different quarterback.
Fair enough.
Here's, I think, where we're going to disagree on things again.
I know you're going to disagree with what I picked here, but that's okay. Because what I picked here, you already picked earlier. So, at number 18, we have the Lions picking again. Again, we already discussed the option that the Lions could move out of this position if they decide they don't like anything that's here, and possibly try to get more draft capital. If they don't, they don't, but they could. However, what I decided to do is I thought about their team again some more, and went, all right, what did I already pick for the Lions? Right, I already picked somebody to shore up on their defense. So, the Lions are probably going to keep Jared Goff for what seems like pretty a while, because Jared Goff is having probably the resurgence of his lifetime over in Detroit somehow. So why not shore up his offensive line some more? And I decided to give him the best offensive guard that was still available, which is the offensive guard out of Florida, Osiris Torrance.
I haven't mentioned him yet, but he's not too much further down my list.
Oh, I thought you mentioned him earlier.
Okay. No, but he's not too much further down my list, and I do not blame you for it.
I was going to say, this is actually one of those things where I don't think you're going to necessarily disagree with my pick necessarily as much as you just didn't pick the same or have the same kind of
I do
mindset.
not have the same take.
Yeah, but I think it makes sense. They do need an offensive guard, and Torrance is easily the best one that's available. I think it does make some amount of sense. Now, as to if they will pick that or not, I don't know, but I thought they needed more offensive line help personally, but I'm curious to see what you do.
I looked at it and I went, well, you just got rid of your best pass-catching tight end you've ever had in franchise history recently. You've got one real pass-catching weapon with Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, and you have you did sign you signed someone back again, but you could definitely use another pair of hands. And I think there's a tight end available who fits the bill. So out of Utah, the Lions will select the tight end, Dalton Kincaid. Again, he runs well. He jumps high. He's got good hands. He's always in position to make a good catch. I have a feeling that he'd pair magnificently with somebody like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he'd provide a great safety valve for Goff. I think you could address your line in the second round. This is another place though where I could see them trading out of. I 100% agree with you, but I feel like they're going to address the line in the second round, and I think Kincaid goes here.
I could see that. I personally obviously don't have Kincaid in my list. Obviously, if I don't have the other guy, I don't have Kincaid
obviously.
I think Kincaid easily could get picked up also in the second round, which is why I didn't really worry about it too much. But hey, you never know.
Yep.
All right, so moving on from 18, we're going to the 19th overall pick, which belongs to the Buccaneers. And the Bucs have problems. However, they did shore up one of their recent problems, obviously, with their QB issue by picking up Baker Mayfield. Now, I see if he's going to be a long-term, I don't know. But you don't necessarily need to worry about QB now, and there's obviously rumors that they could be all in for going for like a Lamar Jackson or something like that, right? Who knows? Either way, I don't think that they're going for a QB here. I don't think they need wide receivers too badly. They still have some good talent there. And even their offensive line isn't terrible, but they could definitely use help, so I could see an offensive lineman being put here. I don't think that's what they're going to do, though. I think instead they're going to shore up their defensive line instead and pick the guy out of Iowa, Lucas Van Ness. Just because he fits so many positional needs all at once with one guy. And while he can't play all positions at once, it definitely gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to your locker room for sure. And I think that's what they like.
Fair enough. Given that he slipped this far down, though, the Bears' offense does have a ginormous, glaring hole right behind Baker Mayfield. So, with the 19th overall pick, the Buccaneers take the running back from Texas, Bijan Robinson.
He's still here, yeah.
He's still here. If he's still here, the Bucs are going to pounce all over that. They need a running game. Bijan does that. He also provides a good safety valve out of the backfield for Baker to throw the ball to underneath and let him make something happen. And having a dude that talented behind Baker takes a shit ton of pressure off of him. So now you have two very talented wide receivers and a very talented running back. And, maybe you can. And since, none of the wide receivers seem to be needy, we'll go with that word, like certain other people were. Perhaps spreading the ball around and allowing him to actually play a little bit, he'll do better. We'll see.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's got potential there. So
I can see it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So moving on from 19, we go to 20, and the 20 overall pick belongs to the Seattle Seahawks. And I thought it'd be really fun here, looking at what needs they still had, and knowing Pete Carroll, I thought this is a match that I thought would be really fun, and curious to see what happens. And so I ended up picking the linebacker out of Clemson, Trenton Simpson. And I could see him fitting in Pete Carroll's system very well. And Pete Carroll, loves his big linebackers, and Simpson certainly fits that mold. So I thought it'd be fun.
No, it's not wrong. However, since I kind of addressed the pass rush already for them,
That's right.
with Carter, I went ahead and said, the one other thing they could use is probably help on the offensive line. They could entirely draft a quarterback here to stash behind Geno, but I don't think they're going to do that. Hendon Hooker definitely is going to be a target here if he's still here, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to draft an offensive guard, and in fact, here I have the offensive guard from Florida, Osiris Torrance, at number 20 to the Seahawks.
That's right.
It shores up their line, gives Geno more time to throw. I think that's the one of their weaknesses on the offensive line is that they definitely do need a guard. They probably also need a center, but again, I think they're going to be looking second round for a center. I don't think that the dude is worth a first round pick, otherwise I'd have him here. But I think that you could get an offensive guard here. I think Osiris Torrance is worth it. I think it makes sense. Yours isn't a bad idea either. And if they don't go safety or something way up high like that, and or if they don't go edge way up high and they go safety, or if they don't go defensive tackle way up high, absolutely. Trenton Simpson makes a ton of sense here. Pete Carroll could probably get the maximum out of him, but I think it would be very, very unique.
All right. Moving on to the 21st overall pick, which belongs to the LA Chargers. And I thought, I'm surprised this player is still available on my board, and I don't think the Chargers could pass up him, even though they don't really need him. I mean, he's labeled as a need by some people. I don't know if if this position's necessarily a need for them, but they could absolutely use him and could utilize him properly. That'd be very fun. Which is the edge/linebacker out of Texas Tech, Tyree Wilson. They absolutely don't need him, but if he's still here, he's absolutely going. And the Chargers will take him, and can you imagine how dangerous that defense would be with Tyree Wilson, Joey Bosa, who else is on there? They got a couple other names.
Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack, there it is, yeah. Like, that's an interestingly tough defense.
That is. I went to the other side of the ball on this one, though. Mostly because Wilson is gone off of my... In fact, all the edge rushers, there's still, what's his name? Nolan Smith is still available. But I don't... If you had a choice between that and another side of the ball, I think you're looking at the offensive side of the ball. And I think that what they're going to do is give Justin Herbert more time to throw so that he's not under pressure so much. So I looked around and I was like, okay, but what tackle do I still have left that I like? And so at this point, I reached a little bit, but he could potentially be here. But I will admit it's a bit of a reach. And I went with the offensive tackle out of Tennessee, Darnell Wright.
Okay. It's a little bit of a reach, I agree. But
it's a little bit of a reach. You could have him in the second round, but I think he would go higher in the second round than what you have. Thus, I think you can grab him here. I think it's worth the risk. I think he helps shore up your line quite a bit. I think, you give Herbert way more time to throw, and I think that's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. That's not a bad pick at all for him. All right. Now moving on to the 22nd overall pick belonging to the Ravens. And I thought right away, and I don't know if you agree with me on this or not, you might not, but I thought right away, what is their biggest problem? Well, you could argue as QB if you're worried about Lamar Jackson leaving, but I still think that they have a decent backup QB, so I don't know if it's necessarily a concern right now. However, who the hell are they throwing the ball to? That's my first concern. And I think the answer is the only person that catches the ball consistently there is their tight end, Mark Andrews, and that's just not good enough. So I thought you need some sure hands. And so I decided to pick the wide receiver that I thought had the best hands. He is a slot receiver. He isn't going to go deep down the field, but he has very consistent hands and has the best hands that's currently still available, which is the guy out of Carolina, Josh Downs. I think you could pick up Flowers or Jalen Hyatt here. Those aren't bad picks, but I think Downs has more consistency catching the ball, and you really want that consistency. It won't be an offensive that will be lightning quick down the field, but it'll be consistently moving down the field, and I think that's more important. So that's why I went with Josh Downs over the other two.
I am not going to say that you were wrong for picking wide receiver because I did the same thing here. However, there is still a top tier wide receiver available on my board, and he slipped down quite a ways just due to the way the draft was structured in the way that I looked at it. So here, the Ravens will select the wide receiver from Ohio State, Jackson Smith Njigba.
Yeah.
And if he's available here, there's no way they pass him.
No,
if
I
Addison
agree.
were available here, there's no way they pass him.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely
Agreed.
not. I would go Flowers over Downs, but that's just because I feel like they've already got good secondary slot type receivers. They've already got guys that fill that role. They're not great, but you need a stretcher.
I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I understand.
And I understand where you're coming from. That's how I feel about it. I honestly don't think they're going to look at QB even if they lose Jamal Lamar. I think they want to see what they have in Huntley. I think that's a mistake, but he wasn't horrible and he went to the Pro Bowl, so
exactly.
I don't know what to make of that.
Exactly.
So that's what I've got for the Ravens.
All right, so we move on to the 23rd overall pick.
I'm sure we have the same person.
The Minnesota Vikings. And the person that I picked here, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Before I got to this spot, I think it was only a couple picks prior, did I realize actually that this person was actually still available on my board. And I went, holy shit, how is this player still available on my board? And it just simply worked out this way. It was not intentional at all. I promise that I did not plan it this way. People might say that I did anyways, and that's fine, but I didn't. I ended up picking a QB out of Kentucky, Will Levis. He has been slipping on a lot of boards. He did slip, actually, even technically on mine. And it just came down to situations on the ways that I believe QBs will get selected. It's possible that Levis isn't here, and if Hendon Hooker is here, I think they'll pick Hooker as well. It's going to be one of the two, in my opinion, if they're available. If neither one is available, I don't know who I would end up picking here, to be completely honest with you.
Cam Smith.
But you think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but either way, that's kind of how it ended up working out. Like I said, I promise I only knew like 3 or 4 picks before I picked here. I was like, holy shit, Will Levis is still on my board, and nobody needs a QB in between here, so I know he's going to go to the Vikings.
No, and I did the same thing. He could go higher, but You're right. Hooker has been screaming up boards. Richardson been screaming up boards. And for whatever reason, because I guess they look at him as a big, dumb country bumpkin, Levis is falling down boards. I think he's going to be a great QB, but I do think he falls quite a bit. And I do think the Vikings, so right here I have the Vikings taking the quarterback from Kentucky, Will Levis. I think that's an entire possibility. Hooker could wind up here. If neither of them are here, I see Cam Smith. I don't see them taking the guy from Stanford. Not in the first round. He's not worth it. And if you do that, you could just have them pick up Stetson Bennett in like the 7th round.
Yeah, I'd even like him even better.
Yeah.
Like.
The point that I'm trying to make about all of this is, you've got, I think there's a distinct possibility Levis could fall this far, and if he does, it does sound like the current regime of Udofa-Mensa and KOC are kind of done with Kirk. They're looking for the next guy. And Levis could very easily be that guy. I think he's got a great arm. I think he can move well in the pocket, just enough to be a pain in the butt. And I think he's got really good accuracy. And I think him throwing to Jefferson is just going to be mean.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Honestly, if he's here, I just would be surprised to see the Vikings not pick him.
Exactly.
Based upon everything that it sounds like I've been hearing with.
They could also take, instead of Cam Smith, they could take Zay Flowers. That would not be.
I just don't know why they would do that.
I mean, you don't really need to. You got KJ and JJ, unless you want to keep KJ as a slot guy.
Yeah. Yeah, if you wanted to, I guess you could, but it seems like a waste of KJ's options. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. So, I think they take the quarterback, too.
That's fair. All right, so moving on to the 24th overall pick, which belongs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I thought about their team for a bit, and we've discussed how I believe that they are probably one of the top teams when it comes to coming into next season, because I believe that they are just so ready to go that they don't have a ton of holes. They do have some, but I don't think they have I don't think their holes are that big. Put it that way. The holes they have aren't like massive sinker holes, in my opinion. Maybe you disagree, and that's fine. But I thought one spot that they could shore up is probably their defense, and I specifically thought of secondary. I felt their secondary wasn't that good last season, and so I think maybe they'll decide to shore that up. And I thought one of the best secondary guys that's still available on the board for Jacksonville is probably the guy they'll end up picking out of Penn State, the cornerback Joey Porter Jr. And he's still available here. It just makes sense. He's probably one of the best players that's still available on my board. So
I went and I looked at it from another viewpoint, because there is still one position that I know offensively that they could use a little help in, that they need some help on. They need a little bit of more help on the line, so I did reach just a little bit here, but it's not too bad of a reach. I went ahead and said, let's give Trevor some more time to throw, and I grabbed Anton Harrison, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma. And that's not a horrible pick. I think that's a good pick. I think he's going to be a solid. He's not going to be a superstar offensive lineman, but he's going to be a very solid offensive lineman, and I think he'll help keep Trevor Lawrence quite clean.
That's fair. No, I can understand that. Yeah. All right, moving on to the 25th overall pick belonging to the New York Giants. I decided that if you're going to go all in on Daniel Jones, which they have with his contract, you might as well give him some more receivers to catch the ball. Because what they have is okay. I think that they could have better deep threat. I don't think they have a good deep threat ball catcher right now. I could be wrong. Maybe you disagree, but I don't think they really have anything that's that good of a deep threat ball for Daniel Jones to really... Because Daniel Jones does have a pretty cannon of an arm, and I just don't feel like he really utilizes it more than he could. That's all I'm saying. And so I think I could see the Giants deciding to pick up the absolute screamer Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee, the wide receiver. I could see Jalen Hyatt going here. I could see the Giants deciding to go that way. I could definitely see them shoring up the offensive line. I just didn't think there was that many good... Like, you've been reaching for offensive linemen more than I have. I think there are other... I don't think that they'll end up doing that, because I think that they can get them in the second round. I think that more of those guys will be available, in my opinion, than obviously you do. You're obviously thinking that you need to pick them up more earlier than I do, which is fine. I think the skill positions are harder to get. So we're just having a difference of opinion at this later part of the draft, which is fine.
Yep, which we figured was going to happen. And I looked at it and I said, they have a plethora of wide receivers. You're right. I don't think they have a screamer, but they have a plethora of them. And you added Darren Waller.
True.
I think you have enough hands. I don't think you need another set. What you do need is a set of hands on your defense. Their cornerbacks are not fantastic, and they definitely need a little bit of help in that position. So I have them taking from South Carolina the cornerback Cam Smith. I think they continue their roster overhaul, especially on defense, and they add that secondary help. I think with what they've already done with that defense, I think it makes sense. I think it helps them immensely overall. You keep Barkley around. You could go offense here, but again, I feel like everything after this, I think is a later second round person. I don't think that you need to reach for them anymore in the first round. My only problem, the reason why I reached for some of the offensive tackles I have is I feel like they're going to go really high in the second round. And at that point, if they go before you can get your hands on them, then what's the point? You might want to grab them now. Could some of the skill positions be better for some people? Yeah, but at the same time, it's not sexy, but I think it helps more in the long run, in my opinion.
Right.
So,
Right.
fair. No, Cam Smith, I think he makes sense here.
That's fair. All right. So we're moving on to the 26th overall pick, which belongs to the Dallas Cowboys. And I thought about really what do the Cowboys need? And I ended up on a position that maybe you'll disagree with. But it is on defense. I think they do need to work a little bit on defense. And it specifically does involve their secondary. Now, it isn't a cornerback. I think their corners are okay. So instead, I decided that I thought I would pick my second best player that I ranked in this position. The safety out of Texas A&M, Antonio Johnson. And I don't like the safeties they have now. I think Antonio Johnson is easily the second best safety that's still available on my board, outside of Branch, because Branch is gone. I think Johnson will just make it that much harder for anybody to really push the ball down the field in their secondary, really forcing teams to try to diamond dunk on them.
I am not huge on their safeties either, but I felt there was another hole with a better player available that could fit this particular spot. And that's they can't stop the run to save their life.
No, I agree with that.
That was one of their biggest weaknesses. They can rush a quarterback. You've got one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, Micah Parsons. That dude is a monster. But you need somebody to clog your middle, and currently you don't have that. So with the 26th overall pick, the Cowboys select the defensive tackle from Clemson, Brian Brees.
That's fair.
They shore up that defensive line. I think they really, really do a good job here. They could also take, what's that kid from Kendrick Clancy?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Clancy, yeah.
He's been shooting up boards. He could easily go here. Even Mozzie Smith could go here. There's a number of DTs that could fit here, but I honestly feel like the defensive line makes more sense here than the safety does. I think you're reaching just a touch for that safety. I get why you're doing it, but I just don't have him rated as high as I do some other players.
I have him rated pretty high because the thing is, the reason why I picked him is because while I do agree with a defensive tackle here, I do understand it. Johnson is known as at being a guy that's really hard to even run on because he moves up pretty quick when he recognizes a run. He needs hard to run past. He's a good tackler. So I figured that he could shore up a little bit there too, which is why I went that way. That's why I have him rated that high, because he does do good on run plays as well. So
okay.
All right. Now moving on to the 27th overall pick, which belongs to the Bills. And I thought that so I'm going to be honest with you, I had the option to choose a running back here. I thought about choosing that running back here, and it's probably, I think maybe even you thought about choosing a running back here. I don't know if you did, but I thought about choosing that second running back here, but I decided not to go that direction. I decided to shore up the Bills' defense a little bit more, just because I thought it'd be fun. And this player's absolutely crazy. The fact that he's still on the board for the Bills. The Bills will select a defensive tackle out of Clemson, Brian Brees, right here. The fact that he's still available is really good for the Bills. Like it's a crazy, crazy player to have still available for the Bills. You can't tell me that he would instantly upgrade their defense.
I don't think so. And that's because I think they already have a good defensive line. I don't think they need another defensive tackle. If you wanted to upgrade their defense, you should upgrade their secondary.
I think their tackles, I think the defensive tackles specifically where they are actually weaker on the line, which is why I picked Brian Brees. But that's just me.
That's just you. I did go, well, let me just say it. With the 27th overall pick, the Bills will take the running back from Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs.
I thought about it. I did.
It is the one position on offense where they are the weakest. And as big as Josh Allen is, and as much as he seems to enjoy running the ball, we've seen him have fumble issues. I don't think he needs to be your best running back.
That's fair.
I think you need a guy that can take that load off of him so that he can run when it's appropriate, not have to run every time, because he's the only option you have.
Right.
Thus, I think Now, do I think it's possible that the Bills trade for someone like Eckler or Cook? 100%. 100%. Yeah. I don't know if this pick would be part of that package or not, but I think it's 100%. And if this pick isn't part of that package, I honestly see them. They could pick a defensive tackle. They could also pick a cornerback. There's a lot of different things they could do here with that particular pick, depending on what they do if they grab somebody earlier. If not, I honestly feel like running back is the position that they're the weakest in. And in fact, at one point in time, before Fournette was released, I had Bijan Robinson falling all the way down to the Bills. Because they were really the only team that absolutely needed a running back.
Right.
And now, with Bijan, or with Fournette having been released, they definitely need one. He could go way higher. I could have him go as high as 3. Because that is another thing that Arizona needs. Because John Connor is definitely not more than a backup, in my opinion.
Right.
He's a backup. And you could absolutely grab Bijan Robinson there and give yourself, a bunch of stuff. But I don't think they're going to do that. So that he slipped the long way in my draft. But I feel like Jahmyr Gibbs makes a lot of sense here for the Bills. I think it's the weakest spot they have left. And I don't think he'll be available when they draft in the second round.
Yeah, I thought about it. I really did. I ultimately decided not to go that route just because I thought that there's a good chance that they'll try to pick up one of the running backs, either Cook or Eckler in a trade. So I just figured that they probably won't pick up running back because of that. That might be a bad pick. That might be the bad option in my mind. Maybe they do actually go running back here, but you can see where my brain was there. All right, with the 28th overall pick, that belongs to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I decided that I wasn't a big fan of their secondary defense at all. I did not like their secondary defense. I don't know if you agree with me, but I fucking hated it.
100%.
So I decided that there has been a guy that's been moving up boards very rapidly, and I thought he would be a very fun pick here for the Bengals, and that is the cornerback out of Mississippi, Emmanuel Forbes.
Really? Forbes?
I went with Forbes.
Interesting pick. I came to the same conclusion you did and picked a different player.
Yeah, fair.
Another guy that's been rushing up boards at a rapid pace. I went with the cornerback out of Maryland, Deonte Banks.
Oh, Deonte Banks. Yeah, okay, fair.
And both of us have the same idea. You have to compete with the fucking Chiefs. You need quarterbacks to stop.
You need
them.
corners. Yeah,
you absolutely you gotta have corners, my guy.
See,
you got torched.
The reason why I went with Forbes is because I love he has a tight man coverage. He's just like, he's going to be in your face ball hawking you, and I love that. I love that aggressive
I've watched Banks, style. And I just think he's a better overall all-rounded
That's fair.
cornerback, in my opinion. But
That's
no,
fair.
Forbes makes a lot of sense too. 100%.
And he's quick.
He's very quick.
So I think that'll help keep up with some of those quicker guys that they
100%.
have
I
to
like
it,
that.
so.
Either one of
All
them
right.
would be great here, but I think we're both drawing the same conclusion. You have to play in the same division as Patrick Mahomes. Fucking get yourself some secondary help.
Exactly. You really need some second. Not only are you playing against Patrick Mahomes now, but you have to remember you're playing with a potential rejuvenated Russell Wilson as well. So you don't want to deal with that either. Like you don't want to deal with a potential
Only
Russell Wilson.
yeah, but he's out in the AFC West.
Russell Wilson?
Yeah, he plays
in
for
the
the
same-
Broncos.
Yeah, they're the same division.
No, they're not.
Isn't it Raiders? I thought it was Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos.
Am I on drugs?
Am I on drugs?
One
I
of
thought it
us
was
is.
Raiders. I thought it was Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos.
It's
and,
Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos.
I was right with the Broncos then.
You were, but it is Bengals, Ravens, Steelers.
We had the
Browns.
Bengals in the wrong ones, but they're in the AFC. But they're in the
They're
AFC.
still in the
that's what I'm saying.
AFC, but they're not a divisional rival. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, neither is Kansas City though.
Neither is Kansas City. You're correct, but you're far more
playing
likely
the
to have
same-
to find Kansas City in the playoffs than you are the Broncos.
Probably, but I'm just saying you're playing against some really good in the AFC in general. You're playing a bunch of good quarterbacks, just in general. Let's
Yeah.
just say that in general, you're playing a bunch of really
The
good quarterbacks.
the best quarterbacks are all in the AFC right now, especially if
Yeah.
Rodgers gets traded over there.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
So you need corners either way you look at it. It's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's your biggest weakness. You need to address it, my guys.
But you need. Yeah, if you don't have corners in the AFC division right now, you are going to have a very bad time.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the 29th overall pick. I have the New Orleans Saints absolutely shitting bricks that this player is still available for them. It is the linebacker / edge out of Georgia, Nolan Smith. The fact that he's still available for them, they really need that linebacking edge core, man. Like, they're probably like, yeah!
So I came to the same conclusion and picked a different player.
That's hilarious.
I came to the absolute same conclusion. They are absolutely thrilled that there is still an edge linebacker player available for them. And at 29, they're going to take the edge linebacker out of Louisiana State University, B.J. Ojulari.
Ojulari, okay.
And it makes sense. He goes from Louisiana to Louisiana.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Hometown boy. Yeah, let's do it.
I can see it. I just have Smith rated higher, but I can understand it.
I have Smith rated pretty high too, but I also could see Ojulari going over him.
Yeah.
They probably have the most scouting on him, considering he plays in the same state
Probably.
they're in. So
They probably see him all the goddamn time. They're just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we know that guy.
So yeah,
That's hilarious, actually. All right, so now we move on to pick number 30, belonging to the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, we're back to the same part we were talking about before, where the Eagles are an interesting team where you're trying to figure out how big are their holes and how much of what players are necessary. Are they looking at replacing players that might be getting old and just picking up players to sit behind other players? I thought what I will do here is just pick up what I thought would be pretty much the best player available, just in general, that's just available on the board that I thought that maybe they might decide to take. No particular reason. Honestly, you might even dislike the pick. I just thought it, best player available for the Eagles. They could possibly use him. It's the linebacker out of Iowa, Jack Campbell.
I'm not gonna say that's a bad pick. I went in a different route here because I did the same kind of idea in my head, which was, all right, what is the weakest link on the defense? What is the weakest thing they have? What is the most likely to go that they still have a good player available for at this point? So at number 30, they will pick the edge / linebacker out of Georgia, Nolan Smith.
Okay, fair.
I had him one pick after you. I honestly, either him or Ojulari could go here. Jack Campbell could go here. That kid out of Arkansas could go here. But I think he's more of a second-round pick. But you could also argue that they could put some defensive tackle in here. They could look and grab any of the offensive tackles I've already mentioned that you haven't picked here. They There's a lot of different things they could potentially do here. They could even grab a cornerback here, even though they don't need one. But for when you lose one, or if one gets injured, now you've got a really deep cornerbacking secondary. Why not? So, like, at this point, I honestly feel like the Eagles could easily trade this pick and pick up some assets, because there's not a lot they need, and honestly, the pick probably has more value to them as assets than future assets than it does currently sitting at 30th overall.
Yeah, probably. Okay, moving on to the 31st overall, which belongs to, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs for winning the Super Bowl. And, again, I look at the team, trying to figure out what needs do they really have? What could they possibly use? Decided I'll pick a gut pick based upon what I think maybe they could use and what's good that's available. And I decided my gut pick landed on a defensive lineman out of Pitt, which is Kalijah Kancey.
Kalijah Kancey. That isn't bad. My gut pick also ended up on a defensive lineman, but I went with the defensive tackle out of Michigan, Mozzie Smith.
Oh, okay.
It's like one of the few things I think that they could upgrade, or that they could stash somebody for.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you just won the Super Bowl, and you maybe a wide receiver? Zay Flowers might fit here. Maybe. But do you really need that? Is it something you really need? And if you haven't gotten Jahmyr Gibbs off the board, could you replace Pacheco with Gibbs? Maybe. I don't know.
I also saw people saying that maybe they decided to pick up a tight end in case they're worried about
Kelsey.
Kelsey possibly retiring within the next
year or two. If either one of them is available here, why not?
And because I don't have Mayer off my board yet, they could easily decide to pick.
Oh yeah, they could either grab Mayer or Kincaid here, 100%. I'm not going to say that that's not a possibility. There's a lot of things that they could do. They could even trade this pick because, again, it's not something they really need, and future assets would make more sense to them than having the 31st overall pick this season.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we didn't disagree too much. I grabbed a lot more offensive linemen because, and it's just, to me, offensive linemen are the bedrock of your team. They're the bedrock of your offense. And I feel like they're unsexy picks, but they're necessary for a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
I think that's the one place where a lot of teams were weak.
I don't disagree. I just find that offensive linemen or even defensive linemen, I went more heavy on defensive linemen than offensive linemen, but I just find that there wasn't a lot of offensive linemen that I really liked a lot in the draft this year. And on top of that, I found that there's a lot of good, just solid ones in the second, third rounds of the draft that I find will be plenty bought up. And then if I compare that to how many wide receivers and how many QBs, you see, after a while, I just went, in my mind, I could see you stretching for it. I can understand it. I absolutely do, and I don't disagree with your assessment. I just think those value picks you can get later is all.
And I don't disagree with what you're saying.
I'm wrong.
At the same point, I feel like some of them are going to go higher in the second round than what some of the teams that need them would have them. So we could see a lot of trading back. Simply because that would make sense for some of these teams to trade back into the low first, high second round to grab some of these guys, so it's not quite a reach, and you recoup some assets for them. That would also make absolute sense. I think this draft, after about the first, let's say 16 or 17 picks, really becomes a crapshoot.
It kind of does, because it becomes so varied on. We already know that there's probably, just in the top 10 alone, probably 2 trades that it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
And that changes everything. Our mock draft board is so, at that point, means nothing.
100%. I definitely think the Cardinals are going to trade. I don't know who they're going to trade with or what they're going to get for it. And I think the Bears are going to trade back.
I was going to say, I would not be surprised.
They could go offensive line, or they could do something there, but they need so much that it makes sense to trade back. I don't like it as much. I really want to give them a big tackle or a big something so that they can protect Fields for a long time to come, or get them that wide receiver that would be an absolute game changer. But at the same time, they could trade back and get a bunch more stuff. And so what's more valuable, one superstar player or a bunch of really good players? Do you need a star or a bunch of flashlights? Which is better for your team right now? So, I totally get the idea of them trading back there. I also feel like, the Jets could trade the 13th overall pick. You could definitely see the Seahawks trading their second pick or even their earlier pick, depending, what's available there. You could see a lot of teams moving here, there, and everywhere, especially near the bottom of the draft with what do you really need? What are you really looking for here?
What's available even left?
What's left? What's available? You're going to see a lot of that jumping up and down because you're going to be, some teams, I think the Vikings are among them, are going to be worried if a quarterback starts slippy that somebody else is going to grab them before they get to them. And they're going to be willing, I could see if he makes it to 14, if Levis is sitting there at 14, I could see the Vikings picking up the phone and calling the Packers. Or not the Packers, the Patriots. And absolutely trying to jump above the Packers to grab him. Because if 14, what do the Patriots really need? And what are they going to get? And they could get more, they could bring more from the Vikings for that pick than anything else. And I think that's what they're going to be, there's several teams that are going to be like that. Hell, they could make a trade with the Bears. I don't think the Bears want to drop that far back, but the potential of getting this year's first rounder from the Vikings and maybe next year's first rounder for the 9th overall pick, that's something the Bears aren't going to say no to.
Right, exactly.
That's definitely not something the Bears will say no to, especially if we throw in a player like Cook or something, which they don't really need Cook, but we could throw in something that they want. Maybe even throw in Za'Darius.
Za'Darius, I was going to say.
Yeah, I just throw him in there and save us some cap space, and that gives them the edge rusher that they're looking for. I mean, that's a win in their book, and then they take a lineman further down.
Yeah, possible, yeah.
And overall, I feel like this is a draft that I feel like there's going to be a lot of movement.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of movement.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be very...
It'll be interesting. It'll be very
I think it is, too. Because there's other guys that have fallen that I think are still going to be solid players. Kenny Ringo and Eli Ricketts at cornerback specifically. They've fallen like stars out of the heavens. Oh, and because they were both first-rounders at one point.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually going to say, this is one of the few years, last year after we got out of the first round, there was some still good players in the second round, but after the second round, it kind of fell off. I think this year's draft, you could still see a lot of good players in the second, even third round.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a lot of edge rushers. That kid from Army is going to be available in the second round. You're going to have a lot of offensive linemen potentially in the second round. There's going to be a lot of wide receivers, a few wide receivers, more cornerbacks. And then even in the third round, you're still going to have some good edge rushers and things like that. The whole overall draft is going to be fun this year.
Good year.
I think it's a very deep draft for the NFL, all things considered. I don't think we've had this many good players in the draft, and it's been a couple of years since
it's been
a couple of years. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a distinction between the very top of the draft and everything under it, but
of course.
It's still
a very
you can still get value at the 31st pick or 32nd pick.
That's what I'm saying. You're still getting very good value at the bottom of the first.
Yeah.
You're getting great value still in the second. You're still getting pretty good value in the third.
It's been a while since we had a draft where I felt like you could still just get that. It's been a crapshoot most years. It's been quite a while since we've had a draft where I felt like, the first 3 rounds really do matter. Normally it's like the first round really matters, the second rounder, okay. Third round, just get rid of it.
Everything past that, it's like
Yeah, but this year I honestly feel like, the first round is great. The second round, that's pretty good. We're going to get some potential stars out of that. The third round, okay, we've got some average everyday players here.
Yeah.
And then the fourth round is kind of where you're going to be like, okay,
that's when it starts to fall off
maybe
at that point,
we're looking at practice squad guys now. But the first 3 rounds of this draft, I think, are very deep. I think it's going to be very fun to see who goes where. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see who moves up, who moves down, who slides around the boards a little bit, and what they want to do. The Lions could honestly trade out of the top 10 if they wanted to. I would not be 100% surprised at that. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like the Vikings tried to make a deal with them. And we've mentioned before that they don't seem to that the brain trust there, Adolfo Mensa and KOC, seem to have they seem to like trading with the Lions. So making a trade for that 6th overall pick is not out of the realm of possibility for them. So
that's true.
Even making a play for the 3rd overall pick isn't out of the realm of possibility for them.
True.
I don't think they will.
No, that'd be if they do that. That's them basically signaling that we're trying to replace Kirk right now, basically.
Yeah, because I think at that point, I don't know. Well, honestly, if he's available at that point, you're gonna hate me because if it goes Young, Stroud.
If Richardson's available at 3, yeah, absolutely.
I say you move up. I say you grab him because you sit him behind Cousins for a year.
Yeah,
and let KOC work with him. Oh,
I don't disagree, but it won't happen.
It won't.
They won't make a deal. They won't be able to make a deal with Arizona to make that work.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think they'd be able to offer them enough. So
I mean, even if you gave them Za'Darius and Cook, and your first this year and your first next year. I don't think there's going to be enough there.
No.
So
it'd be awesome, but I just don't see it happening.
I don't see it happening either.
And even if Richardson does go then to like the Panthers, then getting Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, again, you're still left with a good option at 3rd either way.
Yeah, I still don't think there's going to be enough to.
I just don't think there's enough way to pay for it. No.
At that point, you're better off moving up to like 6th or 9th or something and trying to.
Yeah.
You're trying to grab Levis higher, but.
I'm just trying to think. The thing is, I do know the Cardinals. The funny thing is, we're both projecting the Cardinals will try to trade out of that spot, but who would be willing to pay to go into that spot? Who needs a QB?
It may not even be that they need a QB. Who wants potentially Anderson the most?
Anderson or Bijan if they're worried about Bijan going.
Yeah, Bijan Robinson if they're worried about Robinson going.
The thing is, I just can't think of too many teams that would be willing to pay a lot to jump into that 3rd spot, though. So realistically, actually, the more I think about it, the Vikings could potentially try to slide into there. Actually.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. Is that there aren't that many teams. I mean, the Cowboys, because the Cowboys absolutely would pay to move up to draft Robinson.
That's true. Yeah.
They don't really need a running back with Pollard, but if they worry about Pollard's injury and they let go of Zeke, Bijan played at UT. He's from the area. That's a Jerry Jones move.
Yeah. I guess I could also see if, like, depending on how things are going, but you could see a world in, like, where Tennessee tries to make a move for the 3rd or to try to replace a QB, right? If they're worried about Tannehill and moving off of him, they could try to get his replacement, and they don't trust Malik anymore,
I could see that, too.
I could see
or
that.
You could also see... if they somehow lose... Yeah, but then they'd already gained a couple of first-round picks. I don't know what they'd do, the Ravens, if they lost...
That's what I was going to say. The Ravens, I could see it if they wanted to make that jump, if they lost Lamar, if they thought they needed to replace him. I could see them making that move because they would have had those first-round picks to make that potential move. I don't know if they would, but I could see them trying if they wanted to. Yeah, like, the more I think about it, we both believe Cardinals will try to make a move if they don't select Anderson there. But there's only so many teams that would be actually willing to play ball for that spot.
So that spot may not have the value that we think it does. And the Vikings being able to offer an edge rusher and a good running back, plus a couple of firsts, which cuts our salary cap way down. And then it allows us, you're going to sacrifice next year's first, but you're going to be able to get the quarterback you want now. There's the potential there. There's a
That'd be
potential there.
that would be a fun draft day trade. I don't think it'll happen, but it'd be fun.
It would be fun, and I would shit bricks. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. It's not gonna happen, but that'd be crazy.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
I can't get my hopes up about that.
But it would be bananas.
It would be bananas.
Also, real quick, are they still... I'm curious about something, because I'd seen something in the stats. No, they have lost now. For a while, the Twins were one of the last undefeated teams in baseball. They have now lost a couple of games.
Gotcha.
There is still one undefeated team in baseball.
Nice.
At 9-0, it is the Tampa Bay Rays.
Okay. Not the team I would have expected, but all right.
By the way, they have scored 75 runs in 9 games and given up 18. They are a plus 57.
Okie dokie then.
Like, it's just, I'm looking at it and I'm going, this is fucking stupid.
Apparently the Rays are really good this year so far.
Apparently. Yeah. I mean, good lord. Can I do by team? Nah, that's fine. Like, their best pitcher is Springs. I don't even know who that is, but he has 2 wins and an ERA of 0. He has pitched 13 innings and only given up 3 hits. He has 19 Ks.
Jeez. Apparently he's playing well.
Yeah. Dylan Rasmussen has an ERA of 0. He has pitched 13 innings, has 2 wins, and has 15 strikeouts.
Ridiculous, dude.
McClanahan has an ERA of 1.5 and has 2 wins, I think. Yes. And Eflin is the only guy to not have 2 quality starts. He only has 1, but he still has 2 wins. He has given up 12 hits and 4 earned runs. He still has 12 strikeouts, and he still only has an ERA of 3.27. It's dumb. It's dumb. I'm looking at their stats, and it's just dumb. Like, Wander Franco, their shortstop, has 13 hits and 37 at-bats. He has 3 doubles and 4 home runs and 9 RBIs. Arozarena has 13 hits and 35 at-bats, which gives him a 371 batting average. And he has 3 doubles and 2 home runs and 11 RBIs. I'm looking at this just going, this is stupid.
That's pretty dumb, yeah.
Yeah. They're just smashing people. Like, I'm looking at, like, their recent scores. They beat the Tigers 12-2. They beat the Tigers 5-1. They beat the Nationals 6-2. They beat the Nationals 10-6. They beat the Nationals 7-2. They beat the Athletics 9-5. They beat the Athletics 11-0, and then beat them again 11-0.
Let's have a repeat of the same game, please.
Thank you. God, they're killing people. It's not fair.
Really? They're just having fun out there, you know?
Oh yeah, all of that young talent has come to life. The other team that's surprising me is Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
They're 7-2. They've scored 48 runs, allowed 23 for a plus 25.
Weird.
Yep. It just felt like we should talk a little MLB news real quick.
Fair enough.
Because I remember seeing that the Twins were one of the last undefeated teams in baseball for a little bit, and then apparently we've kind of lost a couple now. But we were doing really well there for a while, so I think we have some hope this year for the Twins.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. All right. Next week we are going to definitely record on Sunday, and we are going to include our sister Melissa, and she's going to attempt to embarrass the bejesus out of both of us with some quiz questions. Probably will too. She's pretty good at it. So you guys will get to meet another member of our family. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. I'm sure all of you will be thrilled. All 14 of you. Maybe she'll actually get us a following because she's better looking than we are.
True. We are kind of ugly.
We are pretty ugly. At least she looks better than we do. I don't think we need to tell her that.
No.
Don't
inflate her ego. She doesn't need that.
She doesn't need that. She's already got a big enough one as it is.
Yep.
All right, guys. Look, what we're going to tell you, Bearded Nation, stay bearded. Stay motherfucking awesome. And we will see you next week.